It was a promise repeatedly made to voters.
In relation to working people, income tax, VAT, national insurance, we will not increase tax.
And we're not going to increase the taxes that working people pay.
We can guarantee to people we're not going to put up their income tax, their national insurance, their VAT.
But today, Sir Keir Starmer's position seemed less clear.
Last year, in its manifesto, Labour promised not to increase income tax, not to increase national insurance, and not to increase VAT. Does the Prime Minister still stand by his promises?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that the Leader of the Opposition is now finally talking about the economy. I can update the House, Mr. Speaker. Retail sales are higher than expected. Inflation is lower than expected. The budget is on the 26th of November, and we will lay out our plans.
Well, Mr. Speaker, yes. What a fascinating answer. It is not the same answer that I received when I asked exactly the same question, word for word, on the 9th of July. Then the Prime Minister replied with just one word, yes.
If the government breaks their manifesto pledge, ITV News understands income tax is the most likely to be targeted. The basic rate of income tax currently stands at 20%, while those earning over £50,270 pay the higher rate. A 1 pence increase across all rates would raise around £10.5 billion, while a 2 pence increase would potentially raise £20 billion, a large chunk of the estimated £35 billion black hole the Chancellor needs to fill. Economists say Rachel Reeves has been boxed in by her fiscal rules and poor economic growth.
But the more fundamental problem is that economic growth and therefore tax revenue have been disappointing over quite a long period. And actually, if we could get the economy growing more quickly, it might deliver more revenue without the need for increased tax rates.
Opposition parties warn tax increases would be a betrayal.
I think it's very clear now that Rachel Reeves will be putting up taxes. The question is which taxes, and it's that uncertainty that is causing so much frozen activity, no activity in the economy today.
This feels like a double betrayal. First of all, people, after years of tax rises under the Conservatives, thought that Labour would be different. And secondly, after the promises that were made in Rachel Reeves' budget last year, people would rightly have assumed that this would not be the case this time round.
With less than a month to go, as Rachel Reeves weighs up the economic costs of the budget, the government is braced for the political fallout. Jasmine Kamwan-Chaleshi, News at 10.
And Robert is here to discuss all this. Look, you've been reporting today that you think it now is firmly on the cards, possibly even likely, that we're going to get this income tax rise, and that it might be as much as 2p. I mean, that would be a massive step, given it was a manifesto promise, would it not?
It would be, and I think it's important to actually go back to the general election campaign, which was largely fought over the issue of whether or not Labour would be putting up taxes. And Keir Starmer consistently said that he wouldn't be, and wrote into the manifesto that, VAT, income tax, corporation tax and national insurance would not rise, completely unambiguously. And, as I discussed with you on our podcast, Talking Politics podcast today, I am now of the view that the basic rate of income tax is going to go up, probably by 2p in the pound, because it looks as though there is a £35 billion hole in the budget which she has to fill. And were she to try to fill it with a whole range of messy other taxes, she would alienate lots of different interest groups. That would cause her political problems. The certainty of getting the revenues wouldn't be there. This is, the cleanest way to raise the money is to break the manifesto promises. She can't put up VAT, because if she puts up VAT, there's a genuine risk that the rate of inflation would go higher, and therefore interest rates, the Bank of England would not cut interest rates as fast as they would otherwise do, and that would be very damaging for the economy and also very damaging for the government, because its own interest bill would be higher. So literally, almost the only thing that she and the Prime Minister can do put the public finances back on a stable footing is to increase the basic rate of income tax. Now, it will be hugely damaging for their reputation and their popularity. But there was some very interesting polling actually out today. And what that showed was that the alternatives to raising the money, basically cuts that would undermine their promises to fix the health service, reduce child poverty, deal with the cost of living, actually among their core supporters, among those who voted for them in 2024, that would be way more damaging. So I think the view, or I know the view because I talked to ministers about it, is they are just going to have to take what will be a massive political hit. So, yeah, if you're watching tonight, I think you need to brace yourself because the income tax rate is going up.